Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Mark Johnson, Senior Vice President for the Washington Retail Association, here today in strong support of this legislation. And I appreciate Senator Oban, who couldn't make it over this morning, for prime sponsoring this bill for us. This bill is a very serious issue for us. To answer directly Representative Clifford's question, Facebook seems to be one of the preferred ways to get this. And actually, Facebook is an open public site, so subpoenaing for the records you don't really need to do, because you can actually go on there and any law enforcement or prosecutor can actually pick up that information right off the website free without having to do anything for that. But they'll organize on a website like Facebook a number of people, and I'll give you two real life examples, and then they'll descend upon a store, either a small one or even the largest ones, and they'll overwhelm the clerk or the clerks, take product, break property, threaten or hurt the clerk themselves. For example, in 2014, two flash mobs occurred in the city of Federal Way, where 40 individuals went into a 7-Eleven store. 40 on Pacific Highway. They organized on Facebook. They dropped into this store. They started destroying the place, stealing product. They started throwing cans of beer at the clerk, who was hiding and cowering behind the counter. The clerk was so distraught after the incident, he quit the next day. The franchisee, a small business owner who owned the 7-Eleven, put it on the market the next month. It was bad. The same mob went up the street to a Shell station, a Shell convenience gas station, and did the same thing up there as well. We're trying to send a message. This is mostly a bill not to catch and put these people in jail, but to send a message, and believe me, these people talk, that this is not a permitted and allowed. You can aggregate the amounts that they steal up to the $750 level. And we want to send a message loud and clear that these flash mobs won't be allowed in Washington State. Two occurred just over the Columbia River in two very large stores where flash mobs went in, took product. The clerks tried to stop them. They grabbed the things, they run out the door. And we're trying to send a message to those folks that hit the large and the small stores that this kind of behavior won't be allowed in here. And we think if it's a deterrent, we really hope that these won't occur in Washington State anymore. Most recently, one just occurred in January down in California in Newport Beach, where again 60 people went into a small store and overwhelmed the clerk. There's one on duty, and there was nothing they could do. That's what we're trying to get at.
Destruction of property and throwing things at that's assault. I mean, there's additional charges there too. So.
Could be additional charges, but
Yeah.
when they all scatter, it's really hard for the police to go after them and try to catch 40 individuals that are scattering into the wind.
Do they film this for fun, or
The perpetrators,
that's stupid.
I don't
you
know
have
if they
evidence
film
of the crime, you know.
but we have videotape on the flash mobs that occurred. And,
from the stores.
From the stores.
Yeah, right.
So it's pretty hard to deny that that wasn't them doing it.
Right. Do they wear masks, or are they
No,
easily identified?
no, they're very brazen. No masks, nothing.
Yeah, interesting. Representative Appleton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mark, you said that there was a flash mob, or whatever you call it, on in 2014. Has any flash mobs occurred since then?
Not in Washington State that we're aware of. Most recently, I did a search before this hearing, and there was one in Newport Beach, California in January, and there was another one back east in December in Connecticut. So they are occurring all over. People see about them on social media. They think it's fun. They think it's exciting. And it's not. It's dangerous. One of them could get shot someday, and that's just really what we're trying to avoid, is any escalation of the crime into something that could become violent or detrimental to them or to the clerk.
Thank you.
Is there any reason why it's 6 or more accomplices? Why not 5?
That was a number
Why not 8?
Senator Oban thought was a good threshold to hit. That number could definitely be tweaked up or down, but we thought at least 6 was a good minimum.
Okay. Representative Clifford.
You hit my question, so that means there's going to have to be a minimum of 7 people.
A minimum of
6 accomplices.
At least 6. At least 6. So 6 or more.
Because it says at least 6 accomplices. That means 6 plus 1.
That's correct.
'Cause I
So
gotta-
we'll have 7 then. All right. Magic number. Think about that. But to what extent is organized retail theft today this ring that goes in, or the employees within, or the inside job?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. So one of our national partners, the National Retail Federation, does a study of theft every year. And last year in 2016, it's estimated over $45.2 billion nationally is stolen. Some of it inside jobs, some of it by these rings, and some by the casual shoplifter. We're not after the casual shoplifter. That is such a small, minute part of our loss, or what we call shrink in the business. We're after the theft rings that will go in, and these folks are reselling the stuff, often setting up a shop, often putting it on the internet for resale, often shipping it out of the country to be sold in other countries, and actually, interestingly, sold back to some of the retailers to be resold in their shops again, which is just ludicrous. But this is actually happening. We're after the theft rings. They'll come in and they'll clear out an entire section of cosmetics. They're very brazen. They'll fill up the entire cart. They'll have a couple of people, accomplices, on each end of the aisle looking for a loss prevention officer or a clerk to keep an eye out. They'll have a white van out front. They'll come out, on these high-dollar theft items with their shopping cart, they'll literally pick up the whole cart, put it into the van, and drive off, and then they resell it. Those folks are called the mules. They're the ones that are paid very little, pennies on the dollar for the product they're getting, and then there's often a ringleader that is the one that's fencing the materials, the products later on after that, and they're the ones that are making the real money. Then there's usually somebody on top of that as well. The I-5 corridor is just a huge conduit for this type of activity. They're often from out of state, and they're very organized. One theft ring that the FBI and the Portland Metro Police and the state troopers in Portland, $6 million worth of product was being stored in a warehouse and fenced on an internet site. I'm not going to mention the internet site's name, but it's one we all very well know. And this is happening on a daily basis. Another site up in Federal Way, I don't know why Federal Way attracts this type of activity. A theft ring was shipping it overseas in containers, this product, baby food formula. It's a huge high-dollar theft item because it's very valuable and it's got a good resale. They were shipping it over to the Far East, reselling it, and actually funding terrorism. So this is a national issue that's going on back east. The FBI, the National Security Council are all looking at this organized retail theft and what the implications are, not just in Washington, but nationally and internationally. And it's pretty amazing.
Interesting. Well, thanks for letting us know more about that. Does casual theft occur only on Fridays, or?